Lila Thompson had always been drawn to places with history, so when she inherited Blackwood Cottage from a distant relative she barely knew, it felt like destiny. Nestled at the edge of the dense Blackwood forest, the cottage exuded an eerie charm that intrigued her. Despite the warnings from locals about its haunted past, Lila was determined to uncover the truth. The journey to the cottage was long and winding, the road flanked by towering trees that seemed to close in as she drove deeper into the forest. Upon arrival, the cottage greeted her with its ivy-clad facade and creaking wooden beams. It was quaint, yet imposing, as if it had been waiting for her. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of aged wood and dust. Lila explored the rooms, each filled with antique furniture and faded photographs of people she did not recognize. A large, ornate mirror hung in the hallway, its surface tarnished with time. As she gazed into it, a chill ran down her spine. Her reflection seemed to flicker momentarily, but she dismissed it as a trick of the light. That first night, Lila struggled to sleep. The wind howled outside, and the house creaked as if whispering secrets. Just as she began to drift off, a soft, melodic humming filled the air, startling her awake. She searched the cottage but found nothing amiss. Unease settled over her, but exhaustion eventually claimed her. The following day, Lila ventured into the village to gather supplies. The locals were polite but distant, their eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and pity. An elderly woman approached her outside the general store, her expression grave. "You're staying at Blackwood Cottage, aren't you?" she asked, her voice a raspy whisper. "Yes," Lila replied. "I just inherited it." The woman shook her head. "That place is cursed. The previous owners never stayed long. Strange things happen there." Lila pressed for details, but the woman merely muttered something about restless spirits before shuffling away. Unsettled, but not deterred, Lila returned to the cottage, determined to uncover its secrets. Over the next few days, the disturbances escalated. Lila heard footsteps in the hall at night, the humming grew louder, and objects seemed to move on their own. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, she began to research the cottage's history. In the village archives, she discovered that Blackwood Cottage had belonged to the Blackwood family for generations. Tragedy seemed to shadow them. Deaths, disappearances, and madness plagued their lineage. The last known resident, Eliza Blackwood, had vanished without a trace. One stormy night, as thunder rumbled in the distance, Lila found herself drawn to the ornate mirror in the hallway. As she stood before it, lightning illuminated the room, and she saw not just her reflection, but the faint outline of a woman standing behind her. Heart pounding, she spun around, but the hallway was empty. Desperate for answers, Lila decided to conduct a séance. She arranged candles and sat before the mirror, calling out to the spirits of Blackwood Cottage. The air grew cold, and the flames flickered wildly. The humming returned, now a chorus of mournful voices. "Who are you?" Lila asked, her voice trembling. The mirror's surface rippled, and a figure slowly emerged. It was Eliza Blackwood, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Help us," she whispered, her voice echoing in Lila's mind. Visions flooded Lila's senses, glimpses of Eliza's life, her torment, and the dark force that had consumed her family. The entity was bound to the cottage, feeding on their despair, and now it had set its sights on Lila. Panicked, Lila broke the connection, the room plunging into silence. She knew she had to find a way to free the spirits trapped within the cottage and banish the dark presence once and for all. Determined to end the haunting, Lila sought the help of Father Matthews, a priest known for his work with the supernatural. He was reluctant at first, but agreed to perform a cleansing ritual. They returned to Blackwood Cottage as dusk settled in, the forest around them unnaturally still. Father Matthews prepared the ritual, lighting incense and marking protective symbols around the house. Lila felt a sense of hope, but also fear of what might happen. As the ritual began, the cottage seemed to awaken, its walls vibrating with a low, menacing growl. Shadows twisted and writhed, coalescing into a shape that loomed in the dim light. The dark entity, now fully manifested, filled the room with an oppressive presence. Father Matthews stood firm, his voice steady as he recited the incantations. Lila clasped her hands, a mix of fear and determination in her eyes as she watched the struggle unfold. The entity roared, a cacophony of anguished voices that threatened to overwhelm them. "Stay strong," Father Matthews shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Eliza's spirit appeared beside Lila, her presence a beacon of hope. "We must weaken it," Eliza urged. "It feeds on fear and despair." Lila nodded, understanding what needed to be done. She focused on the love and resilience of the Blackwood family, drawing strength from their memory. She spoke aloud, recounting stories of their lives, their joys and their hopes, countering the darkness with light. The entity writhed, its form flickering as if caught between worlds. Father Matthews continued the ritual, his voice rising in power. The shadows recoiled, retreating from the onslaught of light and love. In a final desperate attempt, the entity lunged at Lila, but Eliza's spirit intervened, shielding her. Their combined force was enough to shatter the darkness, the entity dissipating into nothingness with a final, echoing wail. Silence fell over the cottage, the air clear and still, the oppressive weight lifted, replaced by a sense of peace. Eliza's spirit smiled at Lila, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you," Eliza whispered before fading into the ether, finally free. Exhausted but triumphant, Lila turned to Father Matthews. "It's over," she breathed, relief flooding through her. He nodded, offering a reassuring smile. "You've given them peace, and yourself a new beginning." In the days that followed, the cottage felt transformed. The ominous shadows were gone, replaced by warmth and light. Lila decided to stay, embracing the history of Blackwood Cottage and the legacy of strength and resilience she had uncovered. The villagers, once wary, welcomed her as one of their own, the story of her bravery becoming a part of the cottage's rich tapestry. And as the seasons changed, Lila knew that she had found her true home, where the past and present coexisted in harmony, and where the echoes of Blackwood Cottage would forever be a testament to the power of courage and hope.